Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have CoTec Holdings Corp. Trades on the OTCQB under the symbol CTHCF and on the TSXV under the symbol CTH, and is an ESG-focused company investing in innovative technologies which have the potential to fundamentally change the way metals and minerals can be extracted and processed. The company is committed to supporting the transition to a lower carbon future for the extraction industry, a sector on the cusp of a green revolution as it embraces technology and innovation. Pleased to introduce the president and CEO, Julian Treger. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you all for of those who are joining this call. We're super excited about CoTec. We formed it a year ago, and we are really trying to answer the question, why isn't there an eBay or a Tesla in the commodity extraction sector that uses technology to really create a new business, which is a competitor to the existing incumbents. And the aim for CoTec is to do that. We started, as I said, a year ago. We've already made investments in 4 technologies, and we are super excited about their potential. We're all about recycling. We're all about, the green transition, having a low carbon footprint, and hopefully you'll find this an interesting story. The stock hasn't really moved much since we were initially listed, but we think that the business is significantly undervalued now. There are lots of catalysts. We've been making a number of announcements so far, and we're very excited about the potential as we move forward. So, as Anna mentioned, we're listed on the TSX. We are looking for disruptive technologies which we can use the rights to buy assets, and a lot of those are waste assets which are not considered valuable, but through the application of those technologies, we can make those assets valuable. And therefore, we think we're one of the ways in which the world can answer the question as to where they're going to get the commodities that are necessary over the next couple of decades to meet our carbon targets. And we've just announced that we've acquired a small minority interest in a new revolutionary copper technology, which I'll talk about later. So if we move forward, we look for disruptive technologies, we then apply them to assets, we evaluate projects, we implement them, and then we create revenues. And this allows us to generate revenues much more quickly than traditional mining companies would do. Effectively, we are, using technologies which are much cheaper, which are much more flexible, which use less heat, which use less water. And so we think we can generate revenues within 2 to 3 years after investing in a technology, rather than the traditional 15 years or so, which it takes to bring new mines into production. It's much, much quicker and easier for us to do these things, and it's much cheaper. So we've invested so far in 4 technologies, and I'll just run through those quickly to give you an idea of what we're looking at. All of them are, in our view, world leaders. All of them can be IPO'd at significantly increased valuations to what we've paid for them. We own, just starting at the beginning, 50% of a business, a joint venture in the US to recycle rare earth magnets, as well as 20% of the global business doing this. We think that this is of super interest to the US, and both the UK and the EU governments are already funding plants to demonstrate the way in which this business can be scaled to provide security of supply to the West. The recent valuation of 15 million was the valuation at which we effectively invested. But the comp for that is something called Neo Metals, which is trading at several $100 million of value at the moment. Then we own a iron ore facility to create green steel in Minnesota. The original cost of the complex of plants that we are interested in was around $800 million. We invested really at the floor, and this too has the potential to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And CoTec owns around 17% of this business. Also in the green steel area, we have an investment in a company which can make the pellets necessary for green steel, which normally require 1,200 degrees of heat to pelletize. Our technology can do that at room temperature. We invested at a valuation of 70 million. There was a recent round at 130, but there's a current round at a much higher valuation than that as well. And then finally, as I said, we recently invested in a new disruptive technology called Sabre, which can create carbon copper in a low carbon fashion. It doesn't, it replaces smelting in a way. We invested in that at a low valuation. The comparable company trades at an over $2 billion valuation today. So there's a lot of catalysts and a lot of upside, allowing us to re-rate from where we are. Plus, we'll get to revenues much more quickly. So this lays out a number of the catalysts that are imminent. We, as you may have seen, if you look on our website, we've made a number of announcements in the last couple of weeks and more to come. But during the course of this year, there are a number of catalysts as we start to scale these businesses and apply them to assets, and that carries on year after year. Just to spend a couple of slides on our most recent investment, which is called Sabre. That was only announced last week, and it's a transformational low-carbon inorganic heap leaching technology for copper sulfides. We think it's world-leading. It's a Chilean company. We benchmarked it against a lot of the other technologies in the world. We believe that it can produce more copper more quickly than the alternative technologies available at the moment. The way we work with these companies is when we take an investment, we can really help them with their financing strategies, with their networking to put together really great advisory boards, with their overall strategies. But also, we are super interested in then taking the technology and applying it to situations where the technology can really unlock a lot of value. And in this case, we are looking for these low-grade copper heaps, which have the right characteristics for this technology. And each one of these asset level projects has the potential to create a multiple of value compared to CoTec's current market cap. And so we are in the next couple of months going to start looking for targets to apply this technology. And it's worth remembering, as I said before, that Jetty Resources, which has a competitive but more advanced technology, has recently been valued at $2.5 billion in its financing round. And these are the technologies which are going to be required to meet net zero and to develop the copper, which is going to be absolutely required to get to our climate targets. And so we are looking as CoTec at one of the ways in which we can really make a difference to the world reaching its targets. We are at the conjuncture of green transition, impact investing, technology investing, and also obviously commodity and strategic minerals. So this business should appeal to lots of investors with different strategies. The next slide is about our rare earth recycling business using magnets which have been used. We have a technology, a green technology, which can basically take magnets which have been used in sort of stereos or in cars, and it can extract the rare earth materials from that, which can then be used to remake magnets. And given that China has pretty much a lockhold on rare earth mining, but also then rare earth processing, this is a way in which the West can bypass those restrictions. And both the UK government has built a pilot plant, the German one is building one, or the EU is building one in Germany this year. But we think the big market for this is the US. And we are, in a joint venture with the technology owners looking to construct and operate 3 plants in the US to create revenues. And obviously, this is of great strategic interest to the US. And we've started engagements with the US government who are pretty interested in the potential for this business. So we would have a conceptual hub and spoke model, and with a central operation, which would be making the magnets. It's a business which can come into revenue pretty quickly, and a lot of rare earth businesses are super highly valued at the moment in the market. So again, as we tell the story more widely, we think it will attract a lot of interest and a much, much higher valuation, and will allow us to come into revenues pretty quickly. BSL and MagIron are those other 2 technologies that I was talking about. BSL does the making the pellets for green steel without heat. It has an incredible roster of customers, all the major mining companies. Again, one of the things that CoTec tries to do is to get the rights to these technologies and then apply them to assets. And in the case of BSL, there are lots of waste dumps that have metal within them in North America, iron ore waste, steel waste, ferroalloy waste, and all these metallic waste dumps are seen as liabilities. We can apply the technology to these waste dumps and effectively create a mini extraction facility, a mini mine, quite quickly and at low cost. And each one of these, we think, will be quite valuable. And we're in discussions with a number of different candidates for this in the US and Canada at the moment. So we would expect more news on this front, using these exclusive rights which we have. And this is very much a model for our business. We are focusing on technology, but we're rapidly morphing to becoming an operating business using those technologies to cheaply unlock the value of trapped commodity-rich assets. And so you can see us in part as a sort of technology business, but ultimately our main focus is using technology to build up a multi-asset-based commodity extraction business, which could be an answer as to what technology can do for the commodity extraction sector in the 21st century. What's striking about the slide that I'm showing you now is the way in which these technologies really change the game in terms of energy usage, carbon dioxide emissions. I mean, here we're talking about almost totally wiping out the carbon emissions and energy usage that this process uses. And it's a process which globally at the moment accounts for roughly 1% of global carbon emissions. So if we could take the technology and apply it globally, and obviously that's not going to happen because there's a huge embedded cost of the existing asset base. But if we could do that, this alone would remove 1% of the world's carbon footprint. So we're pretty excited about the impact on the global carbon footprint. As I said, we're working on a number of projects in North America, each one of which would be worth multiples of our current market cap. And Mag-Iron, which is our facility that we bought for very little in Minnesota, could be another example where we could apply this technology. We've already seen a great uplift in the valuation, but the NPV of the project is over $1 billion. We are very excited about the potential of this for CoTec. It's potentially another one of our great drivers of value creation. We also look at other major opportunities: green cement, green iron ore for 3D printing, graphite and graphene. We're generally looking for commodity opportunities which aren't that expensive, where we can make a big difference, where we can help the business grow, which are not in crowded areas. So we haven't really rushed into battery technologies because those are changing all the time. We haven't thus far done anything in lithium because it's a bit too crowded and overvalued. We really are looking for value and cheap entry prices. And one of the striking things about our business is that myself and the other members of the board control over 50% of the company. We've been putting our money where our mouth is. And so every dollar we spend over 50 cents of our money. And that takes me to the team, because we have a team which is, world class. It's a sign of the scale of our ambition. In addition to myself and Bram Jonker, who's got a lot of experience in mining, we have the ex-CEO of Rio Tinto, which is one of the biggest mining companies in the world. We have the ex-chief investment officer of AllianceBernstein. We have, an operating team who've deeply experienced in the mining sector. The independent chairman used to run part of Glencore. John Conlon is a well-respected mining executive. Margot Nordy used to invest in the mining sector for CPP, the Canadian Pension Plan. John McGaw ran the Rio Ventures venture capital business of Rio. So these are world-class players, and they are signifiers of the tremendous ambition that we have for the business. But despite all of that, and despite the tremendous existing value and future value we're going to be creating, the business really, as I said, hasn't moved much over the past year. It continues to be relatively undervalued. But I think as these catalysts come forward, we'll see a tremendous upside. And we think that you can make multiples on your investment in CoTec. And that's what we've been doing. A year ago, I was just starting to invest in the business. Today, I own, around 40%. We also excitingly have $90 million of accumulated tax losses, which will have considerable value in sheltering our future taxable income. And we are rapidly creating the gains to shelter those losses. So we think it's a great story. We're just at the beginning stages. We're at the beginning stages of what we think is going to be the equivalent of fintech for the commodity sector. And that's why the business is called CoTec. But already we think the business is significantly undervalued, and we're on the right track. We're effectively a pioneer in this new area, but it's super interesting, super exciting, and not only can we do good for the world and make a big difference, but we can actually make a lot of money for our investors doing so. So, it's a rare thing where you can do well and create profits. And here, there's absolutely no tension between those two aims. So, summary of CoTec. But Anna, I'd love to take some questions from the audience and try and explain more if people are interested.
Yes, good job, Julian. We do have some questions. Let's start with Brenda B. Can you talk about what's proprietary about your new leading technology, and how is it better than other companies in the space?
Well, I mean, all of the technologies we've invested in are patented. But not only are they patented, but when we look to invest in them, we hire expert consultants and we benchmark them against what else is out there in the world. These are quite specialized areas, but we only invest in them if we think that they have the potential to be world leaders and they have a real sustainable advantage versus the other products out there. So all the products are protected, and we believe they are world-beating in their technology.
And which of these investments that you've talked about in your presentation, all these opportunities, which one should be the first to generate revenue?
Well, it's probably going to be between Hypermag, which is something which should come in to revenue generation in 25, and again, MagIron could also start producing late next year. But both of those are much quicker timetables than you would normally see in a commodity extraction business. In fact, it's relatively instant by comparison to what investors are normally used to.
And Larry Welch wants you to break this down. You invested in 4 technologies. So what does that investment look like in terms of dollars invested, percentage owned of the company, and how do you benefit? Can you talk about if there's a schedule based on production or sales?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've invested around I'd say $15 million so far in these technologies, and we own different stakes in them, ranging from effectively, on a look-through basis, 60% of the U.S. application of the magnet recycling technology, to a couple of percent in the recent Sabo investment. But the thesis of the business is to make money on the technologies, and we think we'll make a lot of money on those, but it's to get the rights to apply those technologies to the assets where we have a much higher percentage. On average, we're looking to own 50, 60% of the asset applications of these technologies. And that's where we're going to be making the vast amounts of money in the coming years as we build up our asset base.
And Al S. wants you to talk a little bit about the process. When you acquire these disruptive technologies, can you talk about the team you have to put in place to implement? Do you have enough staff on hand? And with the labor shortages, how are you filling these roles?
So in general, we do the due diligence with expert consultants in the particular sectors, but we don't own 100% of these technologies. They generally come with a management team. In the case of MagIron as well, the CEO came with the asset, and so we generally need to staff the piece of the asset application of the technologies, but the technologies themselves have a team. And part of the important due diligence we do on an opportunity is to due diligence the team and see, are they capable of scaling the business? Are they, honest people? Are they people we can work with? Do they have the right culture? So we're not trying to replicate the management of the technologies. What we are looking to staff up is the management of the asset application. So, for instance, if we use binding solutions as an example, assuming one of our discussions goes well in Canada and we now need to build a plant to process waste in Canada using the binding solutions technology, we'll have to staff the team for that, which is effectively like a new mini mine. But at the moment, we're more focused on the technology stage, so it hasn't been as heavy on the human capital front.
Thank you for that clarification. Mike J says, you stated you should receive revenue in 2 to 3 years off of your investments. So has this been proven in the past to be an accurate timeline? And do you have any examples of past investments that have been excited?
Well, I mean, I have a long track record of creating vast amounts of value in the commodity extraction space. I invested in a coal business many years ago at a valuation of around $100 million. We sold it for $3.5 billion. I invested in some copper businesses in Chile, which for $300 million, we just exited for $1.5 billion. So there have been lots of examples of very profitable exits at large multiples of invested capital. In this particular area, because it's a new area, this whole area of technology for commodity extraction, the investments haven't matured enough that we've had exits. But for instance, in the case of binding solutions, we invested at $70 million a year ago. There are opportunities to do a secondary exit today at double that. We're not going to be taking advantage of that, but there are, valuation uplifts occurring all the time in the technologies, and touch wood, so far, none of the things we've invested in have seen down rounds.
And can you talk a little bit about how you plan on generating revenue with this new copper technology?
So the copper technology can be applied to copper dumps effectively. And it can, because it can extract more copper more quickly, the economics are more attractive of it. So there are a number of copper dumps and copper processing plants which haven't been economic previously. We're interested in finding those and buying those, or joint venturing on those, applying the technology to that and extracting the copper quite quickly in a way which hasn't been possible prior to now.
And we have another question from Angela. Angela wants you to break it down, your model. Is it a roll-up model? You're acquiring assets and getting the rights to tech under your umbrella, sort of a revised CMGI. Are there any patents that you can get control of?
Well, as I said previously, all the technologies we've invested in, we are patented. And instead of getting control of the patents, we're getting the rights to apply those patented technologies to certain situations and jurisdictions. And so in the same way that all the bricks and mortar Silicon Valley businesses we see started with technology, a Tesla or an eBay or an Amazon, they all had technological algorithms which allowed them ultimately to become significant bricks and mortar players and virtual players. We're trying to copy that model, using the rights to those technologies and then applying them to build up an asset-rich commodity extraction business. So it's really using that model and trying to be the disruptive innovator of the 21st century for the commodity extraction space. And I'm super excited that we're on the right track.
We have a question from Steph Trepiconi. Talking about your year-end 2022, there's some income that went from 0 to 4 million Canadian. Is this due to one or some of your investments paying off? And if so, what percentage of your investments does that represent versus those that have not begun to pay yet?
So that really represented, one major uplift on one investment and then a small uplift on the second one. The other 3 or 4 haven't been revalued yet. but we believe that those are coming through quickly, and the comps for those, are enormous. So when those comps lead to revaluation and up rounds, that will be reflected in our P&L.
And last question due to time, Julian, is talk a little bit about CoTec's focus over the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Sure. I mean, we will look to invest in 1 or 2 new technologies, but really now the focus is taking what we've got, the 4 exciting opportunities, and then scaling them with assets. So we would expect more progress on, finding new assets, buying new assets which are undervalued, and then using the technologies to unlock them. So watch the space. There's going to be lots of activity.
Well, thank you so much. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
No, I'm just excited that people were interested. I hope it's clear, because it's a new business, that we're using technology and then applying it to build up this big asset-based business, which we want to challenge the others with. And it's going to be a great ride. I'm super excited. I think we're onto something here. We're all putting our money where our mouths are. Thank you, Anna.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we hope that you come back again with some updates.
Great. Thank you, too.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back with our next presenter. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Red Paramount Iron. We'll see you in a second.